Welcome to the Haunted History of Ohio. This list of 10 is part of a playlist of gentle listening spooky collections from across the USA. The screen fades to black so you can listen without distractions if relaxing or studying. Please do consider a like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. First is Staley Road in New Carlisle, Ohio. The road is named after the owner of a flour mill that was in operation from the early 1800s until 1905. The mill is still there, but the road isn't a regular country road. It winds its way through the trees and woodlands. Apparently, local teens refer to the road as a rite of passage, daring each other to drive along it at night, because Old Man Staley is said to haunt the road. Elias Staley, who was the eldest of the two brothers who owned the mill. He's said to have gone on a murderous spree before he died, and wants to continue it with whoever crosses his path on the road. Motorists say they often experience unexplained car trouble, and some have seen Staley's ghost standing next to or even lying in the road. At number 2 is the Majestic Theatre in Chillicothe. The theatre was built back in 1852 and is a favourite of ghost hunting teams. Part of its popularity is because it operates as a non-profit and uses any money from investigations charges to make repairs to the building. It was originally the Masonic Opera House and during that time acted as a mortuary, housing and embalming corpses from the 1918 influenza epidemic. Blood and other bodily fluids were drained into the alley at the back of the building, leading to it being named Blood Alley by locals. The most commonly cited ghost inside the theatre is a young woman by the name of Elizabeth. An EVP was captured where she asked, "How do I get out of here?" A man in a suit and tie and top hat has been seen walking along where the floors used to be when they were level with the stage. He hovers along until he disappears near the stage. There's also a common sensation experienced by some of being watched by someone in the crow's nest. And jangling keys have been heard throughout the building belonging to a former janitor. Third on our list is Woodland Cemetery in Dayton, Ohio. This gargantuan cemetery houses some very well-known people, such as Irma Bombeck, the Wright brothers, and Charles Kettering. It doubles in function as an arboretum, and boasts a wonderful selection of trees, shading the pathways that meander around Lake Goose. However, by night, Woodland Cemetery takes on a much creepier feel. Many witnesses have reported a female spirit who's usually described as wearing a red shirt and jeans with a blue sweater around her waist. She's said to wander around the trees looking very unhappy and sorrowful. Other spirits that are seen include a young boy called Johnny Morehouse and his dog. Both of them drowned in the Miami-Erie Canal after the boy fell in and his dog attempted to rescue him. People often leave trinkets at his memorial, and some say they have heard the boy sobbing or his dog whining. At number 4 is Cincinnati Music Hall in Cincinnati. The music hall has long had a reputation for being haunted. It was constructed on land that was once the site of Ohio's first insane asylum. Next door was Cincinnati Hospital, and the grounds around it were used to bury the homeless. When the area was excavated for the construction of the music hall in 1876, bones were discovered. More human remains were found during renovations in 1969, and again in 2016. According to newspaper The Guardian. Disturbing the bodies that were buried beneath the music hall so many times definitely seems to have disturbed the spirits. Halfway through the list at number 5 we have the Franklin Mansion in Cleveland. This elegant 4-story stone Victorian mansion is sometimes also known as Franklin Castle or Tiedemann House. The sound of a baby can be heard crying, perhaps because of rumours of a baby's skeleton having been discovered in the walls of the mansion, in a small room at the back of the house. There were at least 4 children who did die in the house. The tower room was allegedly the scene of an axe murder, and the victim, a man, can sometimes be seen in the windows of the mansion. There are 80 windows, mind you. It's a massive place. To add to the tragedy in this house, a young girl named Karen was apparently hanged by her father. Her spirit is who is believed to be behind most of the activity in the house. Karen is described as being tall and thin and dressed in black. In 1982, the Franklin Mansion was added to the National Register of Historic Places. At number 6 is the Bisman Building in Mansfield. Built in 1886 by the same architect that designed the Ohio State Reformatory, there's a striking resemblance between both buildings. It doesn't just share its physical appearance with the Reformatory, but also shares a film appearance too in The Shawshank Redemption. Both places were used as filming locations. If you've seen the film, the building's used as the entrance to the Brewer Hotel, where Brooks and Red stayed after they were paroled from Shawshank. The reports of paranormal strangeness are huge in number, with the third floor being a source of dread and sadness. Reports are of disembodied footsteps, voices, being poked and pushed, black shadows, and dark figures caught in images. Added to all that, people have seen the ghost of a woman throughout the upper floors, and have also seen people in Victorian clothing. At spot number 7 is Prospect Place Mansion in Trinway, Ohio. The mansion was built in 1856 by abolitionist George Willison Adams, who was a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist in the mid-19th century. The mansion used to be a stop on the Underground Railroad, a network of secret routes and safe houses used by slaves to escape to freedom. There have been reports of ghostly apparitions and strange noises among the phenomena experienced, with some believing that the spirits of former slaves still linger there. The current owners of the property offer tours and overnight stays, and there have been many paranormal investigations conducted on the premises. And number 8 is the South Bass Island Lighthouse in Put-in Bay. Beginning in the late 1890s, this lighthouse, a 2.5-story Queen Anne Victorian home, has used a Fresnel lens to guide ships to shore in low visibility. The first lighthouse keeper was Harry Riley, and both he and his assistant, Sam Anderson, both met unfortunate ends. Anderson was an eccentric who was rumoured to keep snakes in the lighthouse's basement. He was hired in the summer of 1898, just before a smallpox epidemic broke out. Anderson became nervous about the epidemic and about spending an unknown future with only his assistant for company. He was found floating in Lake Erie after only a couple of months, having either fallen or jumped off a cliff near the lighthouse. The other man, Riley, was found wandering aimlessly just a few days later and declared hopelessly insane. He was put into an asylum where he died a year later. Well, could it be that Riley murdered Anderson and was declared insane as his effort to avoid prison? I don't know. In 1907, the lighthouse was declared haunted, with the basement being the centre of most activity. There are also reports of a ghost walking near to the lighthouse after someone died nearby in the 1920s. At number 9 is the Lafayette Hotel in Marietta, which was actually built on the ruins of another hotel, the Bellevue, that burned down in 1916. The Lafayette opened its doors in 1918 and was managed by a man named Reno G. Hogue, who died in 1944, and management duties were passed along to his son S. Durwood Hogue. It wasn't until Durwood passed on that paranormal activity at the hotel began, which indicated to many that it's his spirit that haunts the third floor of the property. Lights flicker and bulbs shatter on their own. The elevator often becomes erratic in its operation and will often travel up to the roof on its own. As well as the ghost of Durwood, guests have noted a female apparition in Edwardian clothing sitting in the Riverview Lounge. Finally, we have the Civic Theatre in Akron. Also once known as the Lowe's Theatre, the Civic Theatre was designed by a Viennese architect named John Eberson. One of its most famous features is that the ceiling can rotate, being designed to look like the night sky. One of the ghosts is believed to be the spirit of a young woman who committed suicide by jumping into the canal behind the theatre. She's been seen standing at the canal edge weeping. There's a male ghost that sits on the balcony. Nobody knows who he is, but he's also impeccably well dressed. Finally, there's the spirit of a janitor named Fred, who was a long-time employee of the theatre. He's said to attack anyone who makes a mess in his bathrooms. Thank you for joining me on this little journey from theatres to lighthouses, the Buckeye State has a rich and varied ghostly history. I hope you'll join me for the next one.